Good morning. I believe there will be about 70 to 80 of these talks that I give here in Rishikesh, and then some other talks too that I'm giving in India. They'll all be on our website as free downloads, so the full-length talks are available in MP3 format. Feel free to download them and share them as you like. Oh, well, just like an old person relaxing in the sun who has nothing more whatsoever to do and can just lie there totally content, soaking up the sun without any thoughts about the past or the future, and no trouble with any of the thoughts of the present. That's just what it is to be completely enjoying the natural state. We don't need to look for freedom from the natural state, or with the natural state or as the natural state. We don't need to look for any of that. All we need to do is relax with whatever the contents of our own mind are, and that is the natural state. Nothing needs to be changed about the mind, so thoughts don't need to be changed from negative thoughts to positive thoughts. Emotions don't need to be changed from negative emotions to positive emotions. Sensations don't need to be changed from crummy sensations into good sensations, and then we don't have to try to get rid of the good sensations either. So if we enjoy pleasurable sensations in our body, nothing needs to be done about those either. It's only when we try to get into doing something about everything that's naturally occurring that we attempt to change what is. So don't do that. Don't try to change what is. No matter what your thoughts are, and no matter what anyone has ever told you about needing to change your thoughts or needing to change your emotions in order to enjoy your natural state, that's just all made up. Nothing needs to change. And in the attempt to change things, it will guarantee that you won't be able to enjoy what you're looking for. It's impossible to enjoy whatever it is you're looking for, whether you call it freedom, liberation, enlightenment, the natural state, or just the optimal way of being human. It's impossible to find that as long as there's an attempt to change anything. What occurs in the mind, nothing need be done about that. And it's the mind that is where we come to an understanding of all our experience. So if we think there's something unnatural about the way the mind moves or what it does, then we'll feel really uncomfortable in our own skin. And if we think that there's something that needs to be changed in our thoughts, emotions, sensations, or experiences, then it's very likely we'll find a teaching and a teacher that agree with that. So then, it's just more perpetuation of the same thing. But I can guarantee you that nothing needs to be changed. And the entire process of relaxing, as we already are, is just a fun, laughter-filled, loving way to be. That's it. And there's never anything else that needs to be involved. It isn't spiritual, it isn't philosophical, it isn't psychological, and it could be described in all those ways, but it's not necessary. What it really is about is just the natural order of everything as it is. Just the completely natural ease of everything as it is. When we rest, then all these things that seem so troublesome in our thoughts, emotions, experiences, and sensations, they just no longer are. It's just like, have you ever seen a mountain goat? It can just climb up a 90-degree incline. It just goes straight up. It has no problem doing that at all. And it's completely relaxed as it does it. It doesn't make any effort. This is one of my longest held images. When I was born, I lived up in the mountains, and where there were all of these incredible peaks surrounding this little valley where I lived. And my parents pointed out these mountain goats to me when I was very young, and how they were just so adept at doing the undoable in a completely relaxed way. So you see, in terms of who we are, we're able to cover terrain that we could never cover before, all these thoughts, emotions, and sensations that seem so troublesome, just by relaxing, enjoying the underlying basis of those thoughts, emotions, and sensations. That's really what we want to understand. As long as we get wrapped up in the thoughts, emotions, and sensations, then we're all wrapped up in labels. We're wrapped up in words and concepts. So then we only know one aspect of what's appearing. We don't know the emptiness aspect of what's appearing when we only pay attention to the words and concepts. Then we don't know that the basic space of awareness is the entire space of whatever the word or concept is. So all these thoughts, emotions, sensations, experiences, they're all entirely equal in being the basic space of awareness and never having an origin separate from the basic space of awareness. If we try to tinker with the appearances of awareness, then we're saying there's something wrong. I've got to fix up these appearances somehow in order to get into the natural state. But as everything truly is non-dual, a single seamless expanse, there's really nothing that needs to be done about anything. If you've been told that in order to perfect your behavior, you need to change your thoughts, emotions, and actions, that will be a very long and grueling course. And perhaps a course that doesn't have much laughter in it. And if we're always trying to change ourselves, then automatically we believe others need to be changed as well. It's really very self-defeating. It's very, very self-defeating, not only for ourselves, but for our relationships with others. Indeed, you know, there is something about us that is so pristine, so immaculate, that it can only be accessed by resting as the basic space of awareness, the underlying basis of everything. And in that, any faults that need to be exhausted will be exhausted just naturally, without trying to do anything about them. In the natural wisdom awareness that is at the basis of everything, all is super complete and fresh in itself, and an outpouring of love, wisdom, and energy that's absolutely perfect. The idea that we need to change is just something that we've adopted. It's a conventional belief. From the beginning of our lives, we're told we pick up something, and it's something someone doesn't want us to have in our hand, and they say, no, put it down. Or we get angry and they say, no, you know, you have to be loving, don't get angry. And so, you know, these are just conventional beliefs, and we adopt these conventional beliefs willingly. So that's important to know, that it's up to us to either go along with the conventional way of looking at things, which is that all our thoughts, emotions, and sensations and experiences need to be changed into better thoughts, emotions, sensations, and experiences, ones that are positive rather than flawed, and by that we'll become somehow perfect and wise. Well, if that were the case, then there would be many, many, many happy, wise, and perfect people. So, you know, there's never a problem with you. And if anyone tells you there's a problem with you, then don't go back there. That's all I can advise. If anyone says, there's no one for there to be a problem with. And it's really never the fault of the student, so to speak, or the participant, or whatever you call yourself. Look to the teacher in teaching for the responsibility to be able to teach in an unerring way that naturally awakens the vitality of your own being, if that's what you're looking for. Yeah. What's natural is natural to everyone, no matter what the events of your life up to this point have been. So if the events of your life have been things you don't even want to think or talk about, and they just seem so out of control that you can't even believe you've made it this far, or if you've been absolutely perfect and you see yourself in that way, or if you're somewhere in between, just relax. It matters not. Who we are isn't controlled by any conventional belief or concept. It's not spiritual, it's not non-spiritual, completely beyond extremes, never controlled in any way by any kind of conventional ideas about anything, such as reincarnation, karma, original sin. What is originally pure from the beginningless beginning has never been tainted or stained in any way. Forever stainless, flawless knowing knows everything is itself, no matter what it is. The good moods, the bad moods, disease, no disease, love and wonderfulness, or the opposite of that. So, you know, there's nothing that needs to be changed. It's in the complete freedom of everything as it is, which is perfect all at once, that we realize the perfection of our own being. The perfection of our own being can't be contrived. It can't be twisted into shape. In what has always been pure, there's no need for purification of anything. There's no need for refinement of anything, or transformation, or analysis, or anything at all. There's truly nothing that need be done. In the complete relaxation of everything as it is, everything is guaranteed to be totally free, no matter what appears. Now, sometimes these ideas that we need to change are very ingrained, because there are a lot of books and people that say that, right? But not all the books and people say that. So you know, this is very good news. I'm not the only one who says this. What I'm saying to you today is timeless wisdom. It's been passed down generation to generation for thousands and thousands of years. The most simple of all instructions, the most simple of all practices, to rest imperturbably without seeking anything in what appears, and without describing anything about what appears. So simple, so easy, but what already is, it has to be simple and easy. It has to be something that we can directly access if we haven't, and do so in a joyful, loving circumstance that is easeful, that is effortless, where we always feel like we'll be supported rather than torn down or tempted to believe even more that we need to change things about ourselves. Whatever qualities that we want to display in some magnificent way, they're already naturally present, and they're not uncovered by beating them out of the closet. They're by pounding on the door until they come out sheepishly. they're already really within each of us, and I know this through my own direct experience and the experience of many others that I've had the pleasure to be with over the last 25 years. There's a tremendous exuberance of well-being, talent, optimism, total love, wisdom, and energy that's naturally present in everyone already. So it isn't a matter of finding it somewhere where it exists outside yourself. It's already present, and it's only by resting imperturbably, resting naturally, repeatedly, in the direct encounter with all the ideas that you might have about yourself, that it becomes more obvious that this is so. What is obvious in everyone, and no one needs to change even an iota. In what is truly non-dual, there is primordial perfection. That means fundamental perfection. There's fundamental purity, and the wholly positive expanse is of a wholly positive nature. Everything about it is of a wholly positive nature. And that can't be realized through picking things apart and saying, oh, this needs to be adjusted, this needs to be modified, this needs to be tweaked, this needs to be undone. Everything's already been undone from the very beginning, from the beginningless beginning. So there's really nothing that needs to be changed. Is there anyone here who really feels that there's something that needs to be changed and has a question that they'd like to ask about that? Mm-hmm.
I suppose there are times that we change.
Pardon?
There are times that we change.
Uh-huh.
But we're not necessarily maybe trying, right, to change. But we I mean, not that our essential nature changes, but we make a change, in a natural way.
Uh-huh.
Right? And that's a natural, untrying change.
Everything just flows effortlessly in an uncontrived life.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes we don't have to, but it's nice to, we are inspired to put fuel into the fire. That miraculous change or whatever it is that comes about.
But there's really no thinking about it. It's not that. Here's the distinction when we take all of our thoughts, emotions, and sensations and experiences as things that need to be modified or changed in some way, then usually when we need to do simple things like make decisions or choices, then we think a lot about those decisions beforehand, and there are many, many thoughts, and they're very difficult to stop, and then finally the decision point is reached, the decision is made, and then after the decision, more thoughts. Did I make the right decision? Is this indeed the thing that I need to do? So effortless, uncontrived living is living that doesn't rely on words and concepts. So it just relies on natural wisdom that's obviously and evidently present and doesn't require thinking. It doesn't require thinking for the wisdom to come about. The wisdom naturally appears in an effortless way. In the back, Julian.
What about anger? It will be if I'm angry and I have the intention, or I hurt somebody else that did not do nothing,
Mm-hmm.
It would be hard for me to feel that this is perfect the way it is,
Mm-hmm.
and not to want to change this reaction that I had.
Mm-hmm. Well, when anger comes up, there are a number of approaches to it. And so I'll list those right now. 1 is to indulge it. 2 is to avoid it. 3 is to replace it with a positive state. And 4 is to rest as flawless awareness. And from flawless awareness, see all as flawless awareness until all is flawless awareness. And in that, there is a totally balanced view of what's ever occurring. You see, if you take the first 3 routes, indulgence, avoidance, or replacement, then it keeps you caught in anger and some kind of an antidote to the anger. But if you rest as awareness, then you have a balanced view of everything. If you've blown up at someone and the anger's gone that far, in other words, it's gone from the initial flare of anger into an action, then you know automatically how to make direct changes in that relationship if they need to be made. And so you just know what to do and how to act. In the first 3 approaches, it is only possible, for example, through avoiding anger or replacing anger with a positive state. It neutralizes the anger. It doesn't resolve the anger entirely forever in a non-dual expanse. It's only in coming to the definitive conclusion in one's own experience that everything is equal, that anger is eventually completely resolved. Otherwise, it's just neutralized.
Thank you.
There are 3 talks on our website, full-length talks, I think a total of about 3 hours in 3 parts that are titled Exhausting Faults and Perfecting Qualities, the ease of exhausting faults and perfecting qualities. So it very specifically talks about resting as awareness as the way in which faults are exhausted in an easeful way. You know, we all want to live well with others and have a peaceful life and a happy life where we have good relationships. And many of us today, more than ever, really want to be of benefit to the whole. We don't just want to find the self-benefit in getting familiar with awareness. We want to be of benefit to the whole, too. And the power to do that comes from wisdom awareness. It doesn't come from anywhere else. It can't be cultivated or developed. If we start to try to cultivate and develop good states to replace negative states, then we'll have a lifetime of doing that. Within us already is tremendous benefit that does not need to be cultivated. It's completely beyond cultivation and development. We can only get to know it by enjoying the ease of our being and placing ourselves in a circumstance where we know we'll be supported when we need support. So, for example, in the Great Freedom Teaching, we have support available 24/7. That means around the clock, every day, worldwide, we have support available. And sometimes people need support. That's just the way it is. And when people need support to rest as awareness, it's very useful to give very direct, incisive, loving support. There's never anything else that's necessary. Truly, there isn't. And in this way, the process of realizing who we are is very swift. It doesn't need to drag on for years. It really is very swift. When unerring instruction and proper support is given, the swiftness of realizing who we are, who we truly are, the magnificence of our own awareness, it comes about very quickly. How could it be anything other than that? You know, what is natural to us? How could it be difficult? How could it be fraught with challenges, endless challenges and austerities? When we face ourselves in a direct way, and there's no more direct way to face ourselves than to be at ease with whatever appears. Really. And it very quickly becomes obvious that nothing else is needed. No matter what appears, it already is timelessly free. So to try to make it into something that is timelessly free is completely unnecessary and misguided effort. Whatever the circumstances are of your own life, they're already timelessly free, no matter what they are. Circumstances don't need to change at all, whether you're living in an ashram, a monastery, Amsterdam, New York, Bakersfield, California, Singapore, no matter where it is. Your circumstances are perfect for realizing who you are, whether you're married or not, or welcome, or involved in methods or practices or not. Just relax and certainly enjoy whatever it is you're involved in. And the greatest enjoyment comes about just through resting, knowing that nothing is needed. Nothing that is occurring in your life is an avenue or a route to something else. Everything that appears is super complete in itself. So the moment we think that something we're doing is an avenue to something else, then we have a doer who's doing something headed to a destination that occurs totally within time. So the entire process is included within conventional belief systems and within time-based causation. So, you know, who we are is completely beyond time and space and any kind of causation. When we just rest, this becomes obvious. And if you don't believe me, just give it a try. What could it hurt? What could it hurt, huh? Just give it a whirl for a while. You don't need to change anything about your life. Wow, you know, we have people who are lifers in prison and on death row who are resting as awareness, who have been able to come to complete terms with their lives and everything that has gone on in them, and to live a life of total timeless freedom in that ashram called a prison. But, you know, if we really think that our thoughts, emotions, and experiences need to be changed in order to realize who we are in prison. We're completely shackled by beliefs that, you know, shackles, those are the things they put on prisoners so they can't move their hands and arms and their feet and legs. Well, if we think anything needs to change, then we're shackled. If we think the projections of our own mind need to be changed, then we really are in shackles. And even if there's one thought or emotion that we think needs to be changed, we're still completely imprisoned, because nothing needs to change. no matter what it is. If you have a horrible disease and you're completely in pain, or you feel like the healthiest person on earth, you're strong as Arnold Schwarzenegger, or as weak as the man dying in the street, whatever it is, it's completely timelessly free, whatever the circumstances are. The natural state, the ease of our own being, is guaranteed to everyone. It's the great equalness of everything as it is. So equal that absolutely nothing needs to be changed about anyone, and so filled with loving kindness, so pervaded by totally perfect love, that nothing whatsoever needs to change about anyone. So no one needs to get the same kinds of thoughts and emotions that an historical figure had or a current figure has. And none of this is necessary. Whatever your own circumstances are, they're the circumstances of a greatly realized being, of one who has everything they need to realize the great perfection of everything as it is. We all know, we absolutely know that I've never met a person who does not know that love is the essence of everything, that this love, wisdom, and energy, that it really is the essence of everything. And no matter what we've been thinking is the right thing to do, it's always the urge to freedom. And very often we only know to do what's presented to us by other people. So those are the only approaches we know to take. And this oldest of all teachings that has been passed down for many, many thousands of years, it's a teaching that was very difficult to get until just recently, just very recently. It was a teaching that very few people could get. So in the unerring instruction related to it. So for the first time in human history, this is available to everyone. And all of the instruction associated with it is available. All the support that is necessary is completely available. Mm-hmm.
I was listening to one of your talks on the MP3, and you said that there's the four comforts: the teacher, the teaching, and the community, and the instruction. Mm. And you said that one always should have a teacher and a mentor, otherwise it would be completely arrogant to do such a thing. Mm-hmm. In your case, who is your mentor in as far as this instruction, or do you have one? As far as because I heard that you realized this state at a certain stage, mm-hmm. and but then I didn't hear about any mentorship. Do you have any, or did you ever have such a need?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm going to rephrase what you've stated, because you, of course, paraphrased it, so it was just like a little snippet out of context. And in the Great Freedom Teaching, we do have the teacher, the teaching, the worldwide community, and the practice of resting naturally. Those are called the Four Comforts. And this is a worldwide support system. That's how one could look at it, for resting as awareness, for resting naturally. And what I state over and over again is that through this worldwide system, there is support available. And that when this ultimate kind of friendship or mentorship is available, then why try to do it on our own? It's like trying to climb Mount Everest on our own. Now, what I'm talking about, even though it is the oldest practice, and it's been taught for many, many thousands of years. It's so natural that for me it occurred in my own mind stream in a time of great upset. I didn't really even know about non-dual philosophy, or that it was possible to have any kind of way of being human that was completely free of assessing and judging everything that happened. I didn't even know that anything like that was possible. But in a time of great upset, where I had had a very traumatic to my body and unexpected event occur, all my thoughts and emotions and experiences were just completely running wild. And none of my very accomplished strategies that I'd developed for dealing with life and living life at that point worked at all. And in the hopelessness and powerlessness of that, I suddenly realized that all these thoughts and emotions that were so troublesome to me, that they all had the same underlying basis, the same basic space, and that if I just rested at that, there was complete relief. So resting is that relief. I found complete freedom from everything very quickly, but not apart from everything as everything. Just that the basic space of everything is complete relief. And for me, that happened quickly in about 10 days. So I immediately, it was just so amazing that everything is as it is, and that this is the way it is for everyone. This is the way it is for everyone. I became very interested in that because I knew that there must be many other people who had realized the same thing. And so indeed, there are. You know, this is a tradition that's been handed down forever. When I do have a couple of very close friends who are Tibetan lamas. And so, you know, we share a friendship group. This is what I'd call it. All of the great freedom teachings are translated into Tibetan for Wangdo Rinpoche, who is a close friend of mine. And then another Tibetan Lama, a woman who studied with Wangdo Rinpoche, is a close friend of mine, Lama Lena. Yeah, it's just to have a natural, easygoing friendship among all the people of the world is what resting imperturbably is about. It's not about any kind of tradition or anything like that. And what Wangdo Rinpoche says about the Great Freedom Teaching is that it's the same teaching as he has that's been passed down in that lineage. However, it's for everybody. You know, it's spoken in a way that everyone can understand. It's just, you know, one of the things that is interesting about these times is that before now, there are many methods and practices that have been culturally specific, but that has been the case only because we didn't have the kind of technologies we have today that connect people. People were geographically isolated, and it was difficult for them to communicate with people outside their culture. So these very beautiful practices and traditions grew up within those cultures to serve the people where they came about. And today we're going through this really amazing change and evolution in humankind, where all of a sudden we're all connected as a global human family. We can talk to each other easily on the telephone or over the internet. We can travel to visit each other. And we have tremendous access to all kinds of information about teachings and teachers. So this is very, very new. It's very, very new. And one of the wonderful things about it is that for the first time, we can develop a global grassroots culture of living as awareness, of resting as awareness, and really have a support system for doing that that's no different than the customer service in a big company. Lots of companies provide customer service 24 hours a day, and you know, this is no different. We're participating in something that's very dear to us, that we want to have the full-blown experience of, that we can count on in our lives. We want to know that we'll be supported in that, and there aren't any sacred cows anywhere. You know, the moment that we have a conventional belief we can't let go of, that's the moment we need to rest as awareness. Because awareness doesn't need anything to keep it in place or kind of shift it into gear. It's already super complete in itself. Awareness has never had any conventional beliefs. It's a spontaneous expression of equalness. And in different eras, it appears in forms that'll be suitable to that era. It appears as teachings that will be suitable to that era. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Just share my experience.
Couple
of days back, I was snoring, and there was awareness that I am snoring, but there was no control over it, and neither there was any intention to control it. That sort of thing. So how do we explain that?
Isn't it amazing? These things that awareness is, waking, dreaming, sleeping. Awareness is the basic space of whatever we describe. So when we gain familiarity with awareness, then all of a sudden we begin to see that awareness has complete mastery over all phenomena. Indeed, awareness has complete mastery over all phenomena. The thoughts, emotions, and sensations, awareness has complete mastery over all thoughts, emotions, and sensations, over all bodily states. Awareness is dependent on nothing. It's not dependent on the heartbeat or the breath. It's not dependent on any kind of form. It's not dependent on formlessness. It's not dependent on the earth or air or fire or water. It's not even dependent on the universe. So why cling to subtle points of view of who we take ourselves to be? Our true nature is awareness, not dependent on anything. So the more familiarity we have with awareness in a simple human way, the more mastery there is decisively experienced in our own body mind as mastery over all phenomena. And it's truly amazing, truly amazing. Not only much needed for our own self-benefit, but for the self-benefit of the world we live in.
I must add that the snoring sound was very musical. Although Scott lives next door, but I don't think he enjoyed it or he could hear that. No, in the ashram.
Well, you know, we all hear all these stories about powers and how in the natural state there's power or mastery over all phenomena. But every human being who has ever lived, in whom that power has been embodied, came to know those powers in a very natural, effortless way that could be described in simple human terms. And the way that is gained familiarity with by most people is in these ways of realizing suddenly that you're not at the whim of certain things that you thought you were at the whim of, that awareness has mastery over all phenomena, waking, dreaming, and sleeping. And suddenly there's awareness as the state of sleep, complete vivid wakefulness as the state of sleep, inseparable from it. Not awareness off somewhere watching it, but awareness that's inseparable from the snoring itself. So, yeah. In this way, familiarity is attained.
Let us say there is a dream, and we are having awareness at that time also, as it was in this case. Is it necessary that the dream will be remembered? In ordinary cases, when the awareness is not there, sometimes we remember our dreams, sometimes we don't remember our dreams. What about when we have awareness during the dream? Should it be always remembered or otherwise?
It really doesn't matter. No. What's most important is for it to become very clear that awareness is, no matter what's going on. And there's nothing, if you believe you have a personal identity or you have an I you're trying to get rid of or whatever, then here's a simple way to look at that. Within the all-encompassing pure view of awareness are included all points of view, no matter what they are. So the term points of view is just a label for everything. Thoughts, emotions, experiences, sensation, intuition, whatever you might call it. It's all a point of view. When there is just complete, including the idea of being somebody, that's just another point of view, and it's really a point of view that we very seldom have. Oh, I'm somebody. We've just been told that there is an entity called an individual that's a storehouse of points of view. But in a non-dual expanse, there are no entities or individuals. There never have been. So if we're trying to work on an individual, then we're on a complete detour. When we rest as awareness, at first it might seem like there's somebody resting as awareness, but don't even be troubled about that or think about it for even an instant. Because the more familiarity with awareness that there is, the less of an individual there is. Or the need to say anything about that, you know, whether there is an individual or there isn't. All these mind games just become obsolete. There's awareness is completely beyond extremes, so it doesn't take positions about anything. It doesn't say either things exist or they don't exist. It doesn't say either one of those things. It's beyond extremes. So if we're saying that either things exist or that things don't exist, then we have a conceptual framework. Even if we're in a perfect state of non-existence, formlessness, emptiness, bliss, clarity, that is a conceptual framework. Awareness is completely beyond all states of experience. It doesn't have any positions. Yet, life goes on.
Something you said earlier struck me quite strongly when you said that you're timelessly free if you're strong as Arnold Schwarzenegger, or timelessly free as a dying man. Mm-hmm. And as I've been resting, I'm experiencing that there is this pervasive equality, that I noticed a very subtle point of view that even though I recognize both are timelessly free, I'd rather be timelessly free as a strong man than timelessly free as a dying man. And that added the notion that I've always been quite a project-orientated person, you know, creative in this way, doing this and that. Do you think would you recommend having just a complete holiday from any type of doing? I mean, even though it doesn't have the same intensity it used to have, there's no anguish in success or failure. It seems quite natural. However, there's still a subtle self in these activities. To be timeless free is something that's maybe better than what I'm timelessly free as now. Or just ignore the whole thoughts and just carry on allowing stuff to flow and rest.
Well, you know, whether you scrutinize it or not, just rest as awareness. and know that whatever occurs, no matter what it is, it's inseparable from awareness. Awareness is its entire basic space. And it's only through many, many years of the following process occurring that we begin to look at some things as things to accept and other things to reject. And it's always exactly the same thing in every moment, and that is a point of view appears. And then when that point of view appears, we either rest as awareness or we decide that the point of view is something to accept or reject. That's how the process of discriminating starts. And once that process of discriminating starts, we're looking at the point of view as either positive or negative, and completely throwing ourselves and plummeting ourselves into a pit of bouncing around between opposites. So those are the only two ways of being with everything, and it's our own choice as to which way we want to be. But the moment we start that process of discrimination, then we start to feel uneasy, like, oh, what should I do now? Wouldn't I rather be this than that? Trust the great equalness of rest. Trust that great equalness. Even though you might have thoughts will come up like, oh, well, how could it be that I could be suffering and be experiencing total freedom as that? If that thought comes up, just rest. Eventually that'll come to pass. And, like I always say, I'm not speaking as a philosopher, so anything that I share, I've directly experienced myself in 25 years, certainly. I've experienced a lot: death, suffering, illness in myself and others, near death in myself, all kinds of turmoil and travail that goes along with an ordinary life. And all these things that I once would have actively tried to avoid and change into something else, some kind of better circumstances, I now know decisively that they're all timelessly free, no matter what they are. It's in this lack of separation of happiness and suffering that great bliss is realized. As long as we think that happiness and suffering are separate, that's the whole world of dualist belief, of conventional beliefs. It's very easy for us to test this in ourselves and see how it could be so, just with one emotion. Usually we all have afflictive states, afflictive emotional states that really get us, whatever it is: depression, anger, fear, pride, jealousy, whatever these states may be, sadness. They come upon us. And when they come upon us, we usually have something we do about them, whatever they are. We try to, either we indulge it, or we try to avoid it, or we try to replace it with something else. Whenever a state like that occurs, instead of what you've always done about it, just rest as awareness. Rest as awareness, and know that whatever that label is, that it is that restful awareness, that restful alertness that is its entire basic space. Every appearance has these two aspects: the restful alertness of complete perceptual openness and the label. But they're not two. The restful alertness of complete perceptual openness, the basic space of that point of view, that afflictive emotion, and its label have never been separate. So to come to terms with whatever that afflictive state is requires knowing that awareness has never been separate from it, and nothing needs to be done about it. The state itself is completely resolved in awareness and nowhere else. It's never resolved by replacing it with something else. That's just a way to neutralize it and make it okay for a while. But if what we want is the complete resolution of all phenomena, of all experience in the single non-dual expanse, then by maintaining complete perceptual openness in all experience, just this natural rest that is the complete ease and essence of everything, guarantees that that's already the case. That one moment of instantaneous awareness is better than a lifetime of contrived meditation. That one moment of instantaneous awareness introduces us to that about ourselves that it will never change. So, at death, boom, what happens? Instantaneous awareness. But if we're not familiar with what that is, then we could be afraid of it. And we won't have any capacity whatsoever to get into one of our meditative states or to avoid something or replace it with something else. We won't have any of the capacity to do that. All those capacities to think and emote and whatsoever, they all just disappear completely. If we're familiar with instantaneous awareness, even for one instant during our life, then when it's there so beautifully and glaringly obvious at death, we'll know to just rest. And there's nothing else to do, no matter what images may appear. They're completely resolved in the basic space of that. So you see, any point of view that we're resting as, it's just preparation for that final point of view associated with being human. There's nothing that needs to be done about these. When we gain familiarity with awareness, then we have nothing to fear. We don't sit around hoping that we'll have certain states and fearing that we won't. All that comes to a complete stop. We're able to just be in whatever the situation is without impediment, with complete ease. Plus, we just have a natural ease of wisdom and compassion that we get in touch with that really is complete mastery over all phenomena, no matter what they are. So in the beginning we recognize it in just one thought or emotion, this thing that was so troublesome in the past that we felt needed to be avoided or replaced, that now there's just rest as awareness, as that point of view, whatever it is, with no need to change it. That will bring whatever it is to a complete stop, once and for all. These other approaches are half measures, avoiding, and they're not even half measures, I'd call them completely the wrong direction. They're measures that lead nowhere. They're dead ends. They just lead to more of the same. Like the car chase in the movie where the car turns down the street and there's a brick wall that can't go anywhere. Well, avoiding and replacing negative states is just like driving into a brick wall. It doesn't really lead to anything but more of the same. Even if things are neutralized and they seem a little bit better is still bouncing back and forth in the world of opposites. Whenever we're thinking that something needs to be replaced, that we need to do better, that we're not the right kind of person, we need to improve, we need to change, we need to practice more, whatever, obedience, worship, none of these things are are ends in themselves. If there's something you like to do, go right ahead, but rest as awareness while you're involved in whatever it is. The method or practice itself does not lead anywhere. And as there's no vehicle for that method or practice, in other words, there's never been someone who's executing it, just rest is the basis of it all. But this doesn't require any special circumstance or method. Whatever the stuff of your life is, it's perfect. If you're a homemaker in Iowa, or a homemaker in India, or if you're a software engineer at Microsoft, or a software engineer at an Indian company, or if you're cleaning the streets in London or cleaning the streets in New York, it doesn't matter. Whatever the circumstances are of your life, they are a perfect puja. They really are of absolute benefit. Just rest as awareness wherever you are and whatever you're doing, and you'll find the ultimate puja in the events of your own life. Why look elsewhere? Looking elsewhere just complicates it unnecessarily. You can if you want to, but I'm telling you, you don't have to change. I've never met a single person who wasn't perfect as they are.
What happens to what all the scriptures say and what seems naturally, right and healthy, like you have to use your inborn talents, otherwise they fade away. I think the Bible says that, whatever. It seems natural to do so, and be of service to the world, and a very mundane thing, don't be on the dole, but make sure you earn your own money. This is all learned, conditioned things, but they also seem, at the same time, they seem like, yeah, naturally right. Now, suppose somebody would have done in his life, some worst case scenario, parasiting on his rich uncle. Well, just everything
Please
opposite.
stay with your own experience, okay? So talk about something from your own experience.
Okay. For example, I know there is certain. No, that sounds arrogant, does it? Okay, simple example. I used to be very good at drawing when I was young, but I never, got a master's degree in art school or something. So it seems there are, I could have done better in my life, that sort of thing. So in that respect, and others obviously as well, have not lived right. So how could that be the basis, in the right way? How could these things be the basis of being perfect? Well, you obviously have pushed away, for instance, certain talents, like me with my drawing or something.
The only way to come to a conclusion about that in yourself is to rest as awareness. So when we say everything is perfect all at once, it's a philosophy unless we experience it ourselves. See, if it's a philosophy, it's just in a book or somebody else is talking about it. But if we directly experience it, then we're assured of that. We really know what it means. And it's in resting as awareness that we become assured that everything is perfect all at once. Many of us have heard for years that everything is a single non-dual expanse. But we know it's true, and it sounds good when we hear it, but it's only when we experience that directly that we come to know it, that we really come to know everything is perfect all at once. And how does that happen? We rest as awareness. And this is the practical process by which it happens. We rest as awareness and we realize that all these thoughts and emotions we've been trying to avoid or replace with other thoughts and emotions, we realize in resting as awareness that easeful awareness is their entire basic space. So these things that once troubled us, we come to see that they're perfect as they are, that their label doesn't make them imperfect. Their entire basic space, the basic space of that label, only is easeful awareness. So through this decisive experience of our own being completely at ease with all that appears, we come to know that everything is perfect all at once. For me, for example, there was a time when I had these wild, out of control thoughts and emotions, regrets about the past, worries about the future, wondering if I could go on, all of these things that we all have at some point in our lives. And then it occurred to me that all of these thoughts and emotions had the same underlying basis. Well, I could have just thought about that as the philosophy. But what I did was just rest as the relief. So I was going through quite terrifying things at the time. And when the terror would come up, or the paranoia, or the fear, or the depression, or wanting to make things into something different, I would just rest as the relief, the basic space of relief that in the direct encounter with whatever that was, instead of going off into the litany of description, instead of trying to seek something in the appearances themselves that were going to make me feel better. So this is, you see, how a philosophy becomes a decisive experience. There's something where we just have to rest and allow it to be as it is, to just allow that complete openness of not relying on any beliefs. In my own case, I had to go completely beyond even my own philosophies, let alone all the philosophies of others. And this is what it comes down to for each of us. We go beyond all philosophies, and in our own decisive experience, we realize in awareness that we've never been tied to anything, that awareness is completely free. It's not dependent on anything, not anything at all, nothing whatsoever. All was completely timelessly free, as the appearance of everything. So indeed, there have never been two, but we only can realize that definitively in our own experience. Otherwise, it's a philosophy. When we realize it in our own experience, then we say, oh yeah, this philosophy is the correct understanding, but it's just written in a book, or it's empty words, until we really realize it as ourselves. That's when things really get fun. Because otherwise, you see, we're spending a lot of our lives in avoidance of thoughts, avoidance of emotions, avoidance of experience, avoidance of relationships. It all kind of goes together. But when we rest as awareness, which is true relationship with ourselves, true and unending relationship with ourselves, the forever relating that's totally natural as the expanse of everything, then we face everything. We no longer avoid anything. And what seemed at one time to be problematic no longer is. It just no longer is. That may happen swiftly, it may happen gradually, but it really doesn't matter. Whatever it is for you, it's perfect and can be enjoyed. When we constantly try to improve ourselves as though we're flawed, originally flawed rather than originally pure, then we never feel quite right. We always see more to be improved, right? Well, we've all had a lifetime of this to one degree or another.
See how this can bring about peace internally and for your own individual experience. But I also have what I can't get my head around at the moment is sometimes a conflict between what is within and without can actually bring about positive change. You know, if you think about the people in the world who've brought about civil rights movements or have gone out to inspire people, it's because they've had a conflict. If they sat back and rested in their own pure space, then, well, they may have found peace and they might have had a lovely experience, but they might not have found that enthusiasm and drive to go out there and make change. And you think about the people who are trading in arms or trading in oil. How can you say that their lives are perfect when they're contributing to so much damage and destruction? And how can I rest in pure space, knowing that that's happening, and not feel that I want to change someone else, or go out and try and inspire someone else to change?
That's a great question. It's in resting as awareness and realizing the benefit that is to yourself, and in realizing that awareness is completely beyond causation. And in other words, it's completely beyond all the laws of cause and effect in time and space. That you find timeless wisdom in yourself, timeless wisdom that is already present. If you're just resting in a state of pure space, then you're in a state. You've just adopted another extreme. The natural, easeful restfulness of complete perceptual openness in all experience, which is what I'm talking about, is a font, a source of tremendous power and benefit. It is power and benefit that cannot be controlled in any way because it's completely beyond time and space and causation. So from that vantage, you see all kinds of solutions that can't be seen by anyone else. And your life becomes a riptide of benefit in an unconceivable and unconventional way. Does that answer your question? No. Do I look passive?
No.
Does a teaching that provides 24/7 support all over the world, is that a passive event? When we try, before I had this shift, I was a super achiever. I was already a super achiever. I knew how to work things into super achievement. And, I was named one of the outstanding young women in America when I was 28 years old. And I had many, many other accomplishments. But, when I got into this crisis, none of that helped at all. It didn't help at all. And I had worked very hard to do good works and all kinds of things in my life to accomplish what I thought it meant to be a good adult. However, when I reached this critical point, none of that served me in any way. I was completely at a loss, not knowing how to go on. There was just no way I could support myself, and that's when this appeared in my mind stream. So, since then, my life has been a display of all kinds of things. But the distinction between before and after is that this is effortless activity, completely effortless and tireless activity. Whereas before, I never felt like I could do enough doing. No matter how much I accomplished, I'd feel distraught because I thought, oh, I've accomplished all this. Now what next? What am I going to do for an encore? And I could see that was all leading nowhere. But you see, we're all meant to be of benefit to ourselves and to be of tremendous benefit to others as well. That's just the natural state of things as they are. And when we rest as awareness, which is the essence of all our perceptions, no matter what they are, about life and living, then we get familiar with wisdom that can't be learned.